Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay, which are we going to do first?
I think that you always go for name first.
Okay,
and I always
name
go
first.
for this is. So let's do name first.
Okay, name first. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy.
And this is Girls Gone
Spooky.
Yay.
And we're back.
We're back. Very excited to be back. We have a kind of a funky topic this week. And as I was doing research for it, I was thinking about how many of these we've already covered. It just hasn't been under this dedicated topic. Like these things can fit into so many different topics. But we're basically covering like repurposed haunted places. It started as haunted places turned into apartments, which like I am actually still mainly doing that. But we're just talking about generally like repurposed spaces that were like scary places that they turned into apartments or turned into a hotel or a hospital or whatever. And they're creepy as shit. So here we go.
Yes. Yeah. And it happens more often than I thought it would.
Yes. A lot.
Yeah. There's a big article on, I think it was the LA Times, about a hospital that was turned into like luxury apartments. And now that whole neighborhood like doesn't have a hospital to serve them. Oh. So
that's just like logistically doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Right.
And also probably haunted.
Yeah. Probably so.
Yep.
So
I mean,
anyway.
Yeah, it's funny, like even in like some of the small suburbs outside of San Francisco, like these little like bedroom communities, basically, like they don't have a downtown, and all they do when there's like a strip mall that comes down or a school comes down, they just build apartments. And it's like, what? And apparently there's this new law, not to get into like real estate law really quickly, but there's this new law that says that anyone, so like where my mom lives is on a cul-de-sac, like in like deep suburb. Anyone on that street could sell their place to a developer and they could make a multiplex.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Even those like lots for a single family home could turn. Whoa.
Yes. So our next door neighbors from like my childhood moved, and so they're renting their place out. But my mom's huge concern, because they're right next door, my mom's huge concern was like, oh my God, like they're on I think our lot is probably one of the biggest, my mom's, but it's a 1-story. It's like a ranch style. Some of the others in the neighborhood are on pretty big lots still, a little bit smaller than hers, smaller backyards, but they're already built 2 floors up. She was really worried that they might sell to a developer. And it's a lot of these like Chinese developers who come in, buy the land, and then rent out and make like 4 different units. Can you imagine like the parking situation?
No.
Nightmare. I mean, it would be a nightmare. So anyway, phew, that hasn't happened, at least not yet. But isn't that crazy?
Wow. It is.
So they'll make an apartment out of literally anything. They're like, oh, a church full of children died here. I think we'll build apartments.
And
they all died in a tragic fire. And people are somehow, like, ooh, 1600 in Brooklyn? We'll take it.
Yeah, that is crazy. And maybe now, because I have one that's real short, honorable mention, I called it.
Yeah.
So that kind of fits in with this, because it's one we've talked about before, which is the LaLaurie Mansion.
Oh.
In New Orleans.
Yeah.
Is not apartments, but it's a single family home now. That I don't know if people live in, but I saw on Reddit from 2 months ago, it was on Zillow, like listed for
oh my God,
$10.2 million. And the listing is gone now. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But the people on Reddit were saying that they described it as steeped in local culture.
Yeah.
And that was a torture house. Like,
I know.
It's
but
not just...
Can't you imagine, like, it's sort of like the Manson house, like the Cielo, or I shouldn't call it the Manson house, the Cielo Drive house, where oh my God, why am I spacing on her name?
Yeah, I am too. No.
You know who I'm talking about. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What's her name? I'm looking it up. Sharon Tate. Okay. I didn't even have to look it up. Okay. Sharon Tate came back. Perfect. Where she and her friends were all murdered. Like, you could see, like, the lead singer of 9 Inch Nails. You know what I mean? Like, someone like that buying it. Mm-hmm. But then there are probably also people who are just so skeptical of, like, bad juju. Although I don't know how you can live in New Orleans and be skeptical. That place is haunted as shit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, ew, just even if you don't believe in that, just like how awful to be in a space where that happened to like enslaved people who just had no autonomy or means for freedom or escape. I mean, it's just like gross. But I came across something like that too. That was listings, because 1 or 2 of mine are in New York, and that I'm talking about today. And I came across a list that I decided not to cover, but it was like all of the current listings in New York that have haunted histories.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And there are a lot. And it's mainly like people were murdered in the building or died in the building or there was a fire or whatever. None of them were repurposed, which is why I didn't cover it. But I was like, there's so much fodder for another haunted apartments episode. Like, just haunted apartments.
Future. Yeah.
Very creepy.
And even more on the LaLaurie Mansion. There was also an article from, I think it was 2013, a former owner, and it was all about how she had like redecorated the house. And it just feels so tacky.
Yeah,
I was
totally.
Like, this place should be, I don't even know what it should be. Like, maybe burned to the ground.
Burned, yeah.
It's just a terrible place.
Or turned into like a very somber museum, you know? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I see what you mean. It's like enshrining this place that housed such a great evil.
Yeah.
If anyone forgets what this is, just really quickly, the LaLaurie Mansion, like Amy said, located in New Orleans, was owned by this woman, Madame LaLaurie, and she was an owner of enslaved people, and she tortured them in this house. And she was thought to be kind of like into black magic, lots of like blood sacrifice and stuff like that. But she brutally tortured Black people in New Orleans, these enslaved people, and she was evil, like deeply, deeply evil. It would be like moving into like Jeffrey Dahmer's house and then like trying to get it featured in Architectural Digest. Like, it's so like, ugh, what?
It's
Stop.
creepy. Yeah.
Super creepy. I wonder if, like, I don't even know, do you have the actual address of the mansion? Probably could find it.
I do. Well, I closed the tab, but you can find it.
Okay. I'm going to do some hunting later and see if it's been sold.
Okay.
And for how much, because probably a shit ton. I mean, the place is huge.
Yeah, true. But
so you either have to be an occultist or like a severe skeptic to buy that place.
Or just ignorant. Like, this person in this article said that she didn't know that it was like a landmark. I don't believe that.
Bullshit.
But
there's no way. There is no way that like a neighbor or something as you're touring the house isn't going to be like, you know what this place is, right?
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Oh my God.
Or the fact that there's like constant ghost tours outside the house. Like, that you should probably figure it out from context clues.
Yes.
But
or she's just a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Sorry, lady, if you ever hear this, but like, what the hell? How disrespectful.
Yeah. And her design was not good.
Not surprising.
I'll say that. But
not surprising.
She was quoted in the article that once she figured out the history of the place, she said, "I do believe in good and bad spirits. I was pregnant at the time that I bought the house. So I went to St. Michael's Church and got a bottle of holy water. Every time I went to LaLaurie, I would say my prayers and put on the holy water. It was my perfume." So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like that handling of the whole thing, but
I won't pass any more judgment than I already have, but don't like it.
No. No. I'm not holding back my judgment.
No, I love that. Let her rip.
Let her rip. Yeah. But anyway, that was my little short one. I was just kind of shocked that that's even a private home at all. So anyway.
Yeah, it seems like it should be like a historic society kind of place that doesn't profit like anyone by being sold.
Right. Yeah. Like a history museum of something, and like
it could be cultural
shrine.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, on to the next.
Yep.
Also, can you show everyone your cool pen that you found?
Yeah.
This is the least Amy pen. If you really know Amy, this is the least Amy pen. She would never buy this. It has, if you're just listening and not watching, if you're on Spotify, open your phone and look. But it has this gigantic, like inch wide pink gem on top of it.
It's like a wand.
Literally a magic wand. Maybe it'll bring you good luck.
Yeah, hopefully. If I keep writing with it. Yeah. I didn't realize that I was holding it in the view of the camera.
I saw.
Okay.
It's hard for me to miss.
Yeah. It was a good find.
Very good find.
But yeah.
Bring you good juju. Okay. Exactly. What is our next location?
Okay. Let's begin with the Old Salem Jail.
Ooh, Salem.
So, the jail was built between 1811 and 1813 on St. Peter Street in Salem, Massachusetts. And this is not to be confused with the jail during the witch trials. They're two different places. That one is actually now called the Salem Witch Jail because that's where they housed the accused witches. And they ended up building this jail because that witch jail was too small as things were growing and people were being bad. So
people were being naughty.
Yeah. People were being real bad.
Real bad.
So in addition to the jail, there's also a 3-story brick jailer's house or a sheriff's house that was constructed in 1813. And side note that at the time of the witch trials, the site for this jail that we're talking about was just an empty lot. However, the records from one of the executions of an accused warlock, actually, so a male.
Warlock is just such a sick name for a male. Like, why they witch is cool, but like warlock, dude.
I know. Yeah. And also, wizard, warlock? I'm not really sure the difference.
I was thinking, like, I feel like J.K. Rowling kind of, I mean, she's fucked up in a lot of ways since those books were written, but I feel like she kind of had a missed opportunity with calling the men warlocks. But you're a warlock, Harry doesn't have quite the same ring.
Not quite. Yeah, not quite as good.
So maybe she got that right.
Right. Yeah. But this poor warlock was executed on the site in the empty lot by being crushed to death. So one of the most brutal options for that.
Yeah.
And also he was 80 years old. I didn't write down, I should have, like, what the accusations were, and let me get his name so that we can honor him, because I really doubt he was a warlock.
And even if he was, leave him alone. He's old.
I know. His name is Giles Corey.
Dude. Warlock Giles Corey.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. And actually, I should remember this, but I'm related to one of these witches. And I can't remember if this is, because I was related to one of the male. I was related to the warlock. So maybe this is him.
Oh my god. Wait, really?
I'll have to ask my dad. I can't remember.
God, please. Okay, I'm making a note of this now for next episode. You have to follow up.
Okay. I will.
That is so good.
Yeah, and I'm blanking because it was either the male, he was accused of witchcraft, or he was married to a witch.
Oh.
I think it was the former, but I'll find out.
Okay. I'll say Amy's relation to Salem witch/warlock. Such a formal note.
Yeah. Relation. Okay, let's get into it. Mm-hmm. So Giles, but now it's called the Old Salem Jail, but we'll just call it Salem Jail now. During the 19th century, public executions were held in front of the jail. Some of these executions included the hanging of convicted murderers Frank Knapp and Joseph Knapp, who were convicted in the brutal murder of a local sea captain, Captain Joseph White, in 1830. Another man, Richard Crowninshield, was also...
What the hell, dude?
I know. Good names.
Such good names.
Yeah. He was also accused of taking part in that murder, but he hanged himself in his cell inside the jail before he could be tried.
Okay. It's giving guilty.
Yes, it sure is.
It's giving Jeffrey Epstein guilty.
Yeah. Oh, you're so right.
Yeah, sorry, it's not funny. Like, death isn't funny, but also that man was guilty. A piece of trash.
Yeah, he was. He truly was.
Beyond. That's like an understatement.
Right. Yeah. So it is giving guilty. But all the people in this jail seem to have been guilty, at least the ones that they wrote about.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they were not treated well at all. Which I still think they should have their humanity.
Yeah, agreed.
But over the centuries, the jail has always been overcrowded. It was never updated with electricity or plumbing.
Oh my God. Until what year? Do you know?
Never. Like, never. Until this became...
Plumbing?
Yeah. Here, I have it written down.
Oh my God.
Let's see, no plumbing. As a result, the inmates were forced to use buckets and chamber pots in their cells.
Oh my God, ew. Okay, that's really uncool.
Yeah, not cool.
Even criminals need to be treated with some level of humanity. Jesus Christ.
It's awful. So that was unfortunate. And one very famous inmate that I just have to call out was Albert DeSalvo, who was the Boston Strangler.
Oh my God.
Murdered 13 women in 1960 to 1964. And I found...
God. Bad juju here.
Yeah, very bad. And another piece of family history, my grandma was a young woman. Well, she had my dad by this time. But she has talked about the fear of the Boston Strangler because they were living there at the time, and she was
that gives me chills.
See, how old would she have been? Like mid-20s at the time.
Yeah, target age.
Yeah, I remember her talking about how scary that was.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Who was the serial killer in LA? Was it the Night Stalker?
The Night Stalker.
Yeah. When was that? The 80s? Not the 80s. The 90s or the early 2000s?
I thought it was maybe the 80s, actually.
Let me see.
Or 70s.
Richard Ramirez. He was born in 60. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Oh, 84 to 85. Oh, okay. Because a friend of mine from Texas, she's from LA, and her mom was the right age at that time in the 80s. And just, told my friend, like, how just absolutely bone chilling it was to be living at that time, because he was, like, on the loose and people would see him. And I think her mom actually... I think it was like he was arrested in their neighborhood or something. Like she had some sort of like kind of close call with him, which is like so creepy. And who knows, like your grandmother could have too. Like she could have
seen
crossed
him.
paths and never have known.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Boston's not that big.
No, it's not.
LA is huge, but Boston is not.
Right. And especially
that's really spooky.
Like he kind of stuck to the neighborhood, if I remember correctly. And yeah, weird.
Very creepy.
But this is another side note. I feel like I'm just going on tangents. But
I know, me too. It's fine.
Did we talk about the podcast that was about how like lead in gasoline, they think that potentially that contributed to how many serial killers and things there were in the 1970s specifically?
What?
Because people were using leaded gasoline and the emissions were affecting children especially. So they
grow up to be fucked.
To be bad. Yeah. So it's interesting. There are like graphics you can see about like trends of the number of murders and whatever with leaded gasoline. And then when we started using unleaded gasoline, it goes down. So it's like a theory, obviously.
That's fascinating, though.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, it makes me wonder about like when they use lead in paint. Because if you think about, I think like Albert Fish and like Jack the Ripper, like I think they were in the same kind of era. And I'm pretty sure they used lead paint at that time, or paint with lead in it.
Right. Let's look that
That's
up.
crazy.
This could be an interesting topic. I guess that's more true crime.
Yeah, but I mean, it's spooky.
Yeah, it's spooky as hell.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
We just completely pivot. This podcast becomes a true crime podcast. I mean, there's so much content.
Yeah, we could alternate weeks.
We could.
One
it's
week
true.
is spooky. One week is Girls Gone Murdered.
Yeah, Girls Gone. I mean, it's still Girls Gone spooky. It's just slightly more real world spooky. Yeah. Well, not that ghosts aren't real, but of this
immediate
world. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I can't remember what the podcast was. But
yeah, if you think of it, let me know. It reminds me of this, like, that silly, like, it's like when teachers are trying to explain correlation versus causation, and they have that stat of, like, ice cream sales go up in the summer and murder rates go up in the summer. Is it correlation or causation? It's like probably not causation.
Yeah.
Maybe murdering people makes you want ice cream, not ice cream makes you murderous, but I think it's just like heat for both. But it kind of reminds me of that, although that sounds like actually very legitimate, that it would mess with your brain chemistry as a child and then cause you to have a lot more issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's stay away from areas with high lead.
Yes.
Whatever contamination, I guess.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah. I don't think anywhere uses leaded gasoline anymore.
No, but there's lead in other stuff. Like, didn't they find lead in that Infantamil or whatever that baby formula was? And also in baby food, there was just another thing, a recall for like canned, jarred baby food that you buy at the grocery store.
Yikes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's freaky.
Yeah. Very.
As if there aren't enough things to be scared about when you're a parent. It's like, oh, Gerber? No, poison. We'll turn your baby into a serial killer.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Everything won't. I was joking. For all the parents out there, it probably won't.
Yeah. Although I'm sure that there are things that were like, yeah, this is perfectly safe.
Well, of course, at the time.
In 10 years that we find out we're all giving ourselves cancer.
Well, it's like Diet Coke. But then they were like, oh, yeah, that's cancer causing. People were like, don't care. I mean, cigarettes. Like, people still smoke cigarettes. Just don't care.
True. Yeah. Okay, anyway. Back to our jail. Okay, did I say this already? That the ghost tours in Salem usually stop at this jail, even though it's now luxury apartments. And sometimes they like to tell people that the ghost of the strangler is there. But I think that that's more just for like the shock value. But let's see. little more history of the jail, that in the 80s, because of their lack of plumbing and electricity, there were a few riots. So in 1980, a small riot broke out where people were dumping their buckets onto the floor. And then they squashed that. But in 1984, several inmates successfully sued the county for inadequate living conditions due to the lack of plumbing and modern amenities.
Fair.
Yeah. But it wasn't until 1991 that a judge ordered the jail to be closed. Like, I don't think they actually addressed anything, because they just ended up closing it. And while they were moving, there was another riot that broke out, again, throwing their buckets throughout the jail.
Jesus.
Throwing food, blah, blah, blah. And at the time, it was the oldest active penitentiary in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So,
I mean, yeah, and like it shows.
Right. Yeah. In a really bad way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so then it was just left empty. In 1999, a fire broke out. It switched hands quite a bit until finally, let's see, I think it was 2016. The property was sold to some company that has since turned it into luxury apartments, as well as a restaurant and a barcade called the Bit Bar. So there we go.
A barcade.
Yeah, a barcade. Oh, another fun fact about it that I forgot to say was that, you know how Harry Houdini used to do like escape acts? He did one of them in that jail.
When did Houdini live?
Early 1900s.
Okay.
Or 1920.
Like, do you ever like see those things where it's like, did you know that like so-and-so died in 1980? And it's like someone who you thought lived in the 1700s. You know what I mean? It's like those weird ones where you're like, I have no idea when you were alive.
Right. Yeah. He died in 1926. So yeah.
Okay.
I was
yes,
kind of on
you were correct.
Early 1900s.
Well, because he wasn't that old when he died. Was he?
Let's see. He was born...
Sorry, I'm like really putting you on the spot.
Okay, good luck doing this math. Ready?
Oh God.
He was born in 1874 and died in 1926. So not that old.
26. So 52. He was 52.
Good job.
Got it.
Yeah.
My dad's probably going to be like, that's not right. Your mental math sucks, because it does. Well, but I think that's right.
Got it. Okay, let's pretend. I'm not even going to try. So that, and then also other ghosts that they mention on the tour are just figures in the window. And typically it's people who look like they're dressed in Civil War garb, because at the time they did keep some like prisoners of war, I guess, if there was such a thing in there. So
enemy soldiers.
Exactly.
Ooh.
So that's the jail. And now they are pretty beautiful apartments, actually. I was looking at them online, so they did a good job. And they do have plumbing? Yes. They do have plumbing and electricity.
Well, phew. Jeez. Sorry, I'm choking on my coffee.
No, that's okay. What more can you ask for, really?
Really? Oh my God. Plumbing and electricity? Sign me up.
Yeah, that's all we ask. But
wow.
On to you now. So we
can
go back.
My turn. Okay, so my first one is about a haunted hospital turned into an apartment. And this is a little bit of like not a palate cleanser, but like a little appetizer, because it's not like super not confirmed. It's like not, I don't know. It's not in a ton of detail, and there's a bit of ambiguity. So this is from Seeker Tate on the paranormal subreddit. And The title is Haunting at Former Hospital Turned Apartment Update, but I couldn't find their original posts about it. And this one was archived because it's from a couple of years ago. So I wonder if maybe they took down the original ones at some point. But they refer to the last one. So they say, in a previous upload to the subreddit, I talked about some of the haunting that occurred in my former hospital current apartment complex. As my lease comes to an end, I figured now would be a great time to give an update on this past year. So let's start with the mental side of all of this. The entities here are no stranger to mind games. They take your insecurities, your trauma, all the negatives of yourself and throw it in your face. They wait for you to feel some type of way and then feed off of it. Paranoia, I believe, is one of their favorite forms of mental manipulation. There have been a handful of times my brain, in a sense, romanticized my boyfriend in a car crash and dead in a ditch. He's fully alive and well, and I brag about how in love I am with him, yet the thoughts plague my mind to the point where I'm bawling, crying. Death is a constant thought nowadays living in this place. Not murder, but death. Suicide, accidental death, really anything of the sort. Since moving in, I honestly haven't felt truly happy. Every 5 seconds or so, I feel like I'm zoning out and struggling to stay present in my body. It feels like a constant brain fog. I forget more than a late-stage dementia patient seems to. That's not a joke, but an honest comparison. It's been a long time since I felt like my normal self, and I really attribute it to the entities in this building. On the bright side of all of this, it's forced me to work through a lot of trauma. I'm not sure if you want to classify this as physical or mental, but I've only been getting 2 to 4 hours of sleep each night. I'm not sure it's really classifiable as sleep either, the sleep I am getting. It's more or less passing out eventually and waking up a couple of hours later. Physically, however, it's pretty calm. Occasionally a bruise here, a scratch there, but not a ton to worry or freak me out about. As for electronics, I'm writing this on my phone, and my phone is slowing and glitching as I'm typing this. Everything dies really quickly. Computers are messed with on occasion, but the entities have taken a liking to the air conditioner now recently. If anyone has any suggestions for submitting evidence without getting banned, please let me know. I created a Twitter thread as well if you're interested in reading more. I'm pretty sure I covered everything from the last year, but I'm not surprised if I'm missing things, as every day feels like a blur. And then at the end, they write, TLDR, former hospital turned apartment has ghosts with a mental game fixation. So I thought what was interesting is some of the comments and like some of the back and forth with the original poster as well. So their username is iHolses, says, I mean, I don't know. The whole thing with the mental games, the physical harm, maybe losing track of time makes me feel like this can be the oppression stage from a demon. It might be wearing you down trying to get to straight stage 3, which is possession and can be more easily done when you're exhausted. But this is just what I've read about, so some food for thought. They also go on to say like the obsessive thoughts and visions about your boyfriend could be a symptom of OCD, intrusive thoughts. Or if you have maybe like a personality disorder that's under like not diagnosed. People with higher anxiety, depression get them. If you have like some sort of anxiety disorder, something to consider. But the person is like, I really appreciate this. A few things I want to share. The oppressiveness has a feel to it, like a radius around the building that can be felt a few streets over. So it's like once you get into its zone, yeah. The losing track of time is a consistent thing and has led to instances such as accidentally spending 2 hours in the shower and coming out to way overcooking food. As for the sleep, after waking from 2 to 4 hours, I'm left dealing with intense nausea for hours after, or just the inability to fall back to sleep. Sometimes it's because I can't breathe and it feels like something is on my chest or my nasal cavity or throat are burning and remaining in this weird state of half asleep, half awake, but I still can't fully rest. And they say like I do deal with anxiety, and so that's like totally possible that that's driving this part. But there are so many other things happening that feel not normal, like very paranormal. And they've said that like outside of the building, they don't have these intrusive thoughts, that it's only when they're at home. And they've said like the quality of the visions are almost like watching a movie. It's not like, oh, that's such a terrible thought. It's like watching the scene play out in great detail. Yeah. Someone asked, like, have you spoken to other people in the building? And this is interesting. The original poster says, I don't talk to other tenants in the building much, but I did notice someone down the hall created a door, quote unquote, decoration that looks like a Wiccan string ward, which is really weird. But they said, as for like how many people in the building might experience this and how many people live there, it's a 4-story building with 10 to 17 units per floor based on size. Don't know how many are families. However, I can say for certain there are 10 self-included in the surrounding units on my floor, and people come and go constantly, in all caps. The unit across the hall has had 3 families in the last year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
In 18 months, 3 different families. Yeah. So weird. So weird.
Yeah. People are breaking leases to get out of that place. That
literally
is a big deal.
Yes, exactly. So sort of a weird like teaser to some of my covered topics here.
Yeah, scary.
The second one I have of 4, so I'll pass back to you after this one, is a haunted former high school in Portland, Michigan. I couldn't tell from the like post I was looking at originally, and maybe it says in this other one that I found. No, it doesn't look like it. But I'm going to read like a blog post about someone close to this situation. But essentially, I don't know if the school was built in 1919 or the apartments were built in 1919 after the school burned down in the same location, but 1919 is an important date. Basically, the original building, the school, there had been some kind of accident where a teenage girl was crushed by a set of faulty bleachers that a janitor was supposed to fix, but didn't for whatever reason. She died as a result of the accident, and then the janitor disappeared. Many believe that the girl's father actually murdered him as an act of revenge. So anyway, the school burns down. Which is also kind of weird, and there's not a ton of explanation as to how or why the school burned down, but they built the apartment building, and many occupants of the apartments have reported paranormal activity, which leads us to a blog post from the grandmother of a woman and her daughter. So the mother of a woman who lives there, and then also her granddaughter lives there as well, who've reported about their experiences, which included seeing and interacting with the ghost of a janitor named Henry, which is very weird. So I'm going to read a little bit about this. The apartments are called Old School Manor, which is like kind of creepy that they would include that. Whatever. Yeah. So they say, they're kind of talking about some of their background. So I was drawn to this haunting because it was a haunting that my daughter and grandchildren were actually victims of. For many months, Jules, my youngest child, had been telling me that she was having spiritual activity in her apartment shortly after moving in. Her stack of CDs were found in the kitchen one morning when she awoke with the children. She said everything was taken from the refrigerator to the area where the CD rack, and all of the CDs were taken to the fridge. It was usually weird. It was usually in the morning where she would find things that were neatly centered in her apartment the night before, scattered around the apartment or in a pile stacked in a random corner. Noises were always heard by everyone in the building, so it wasn't just them. Knocking, scratching, voices, doors slamming, phones ringing in the hallway with no one there. This is an apartment building that had been a school many years ago. Being condemned after a fire, it was purchased, rebuilt, and sectioned off into areas of apartments. The old school left such a dark feeling to the place. The original boiler room was still in the basement area, and the school recess bells were on every floor over doorways, which I don't fully understand. I think the school didn't burn fully to the ground. Like a lot of the structural pieces were still there, which would make sense. The school bells would go off randomly and everyone would have to run out of the building as the owner had told the tenants that the bell was now being used as a fire alarm. Why you would do that, I don't, like, just replace it. And then they found that the bells weren't connected to any wiring at all. And when they went off, of course, there was never any fire. So anyway, this landlord clearly knew a lot more than he was telling his renters at Old School Manor. In our investigation, this kind of recaps what I was saying. A small girl was killed. Okay, so the school was there before because the girl was killed in the late 1800s. So 1919 was when it became apartments. In the gym, the bleachers had been reported as weakening and shifting, so the janitor was sent to fix them. He never did it. And that evening, the bleachers collapsed, and it was then that the little girl was crushed to death. Oh my God, lots of crushing to death in this episode. I hate that.
Yeah.
It had been reported that the janitor disappeared a few months later, and rumors about his disappearance were all centered on the father. It was said that he killed the janitor and then set the school on fire. So TBD. There was speculation that the janitor's body was actually dumped in the building by the murderer, and then he was burned. Much of the building was then rebuilt through donations from the community, but it seems the spirits of the janitor and the little girl never left. Reports of their antics started shortly after the rebuilding of the school, and the little girl has been seen by many of the tenants there for years following. I only felt her following me as I walked through many of the school's hallways in my investigation. I also heard her footsteps. They were light, as a little girl's would be. The first time this happened, I said, "Don't you scare me." It's giving no thank you.
Yeah, don't you scare me.
Don't you scare me. Others have reported that she smacked them in the back and they flew forward, some even falling. So like feeling little hands on your back. Then it seems the janitor's spirit decided to move into my daughter's apartment, and the activity became unbearable. He wrote sentences on her computer to tell her that her husband was cheating on her with the woman in apartment 382, and even gave her the woman's actual name, like the woman who lived there.
God.
Yeah, he started to terrorize my 2-year-old granddaughter. When my daughter found her in a corner, she asked her what was wrong and why she was holding her hands over her face. She said, "Henry wants us to move. He said this is his house."
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to say that he was a girl's girl for telling her.
No, I know. Cheating, not a girl's girl. Scary man.
Yeah.
And this was not the only communication that Henry, the janitor, had with this child. He would follow her everywhere in the apartment. And once she said to her mother, wait, you just shut Henry in your room. Open the door, quick, he gets mad. Like, God. Creepy.
Yeah.
At that point, my husband and I decided to call some Ghostbusters who had lots of ghost hunting equipment. We knew we had to get him out of there. The following Friday, we showed up at the Old School Manor in full force. Some local Ghostbuster friends came along with their cameras, digital audio recorders, and magnetic resistance measuring equipment, and their own sensitive members in tow. Boy, we gave that place a going over. And Henry was not the only occupant of the school, because they were just really focused on her daughter's apartment, but like they're not accounting for the rest of the building.
Right.
Since the problem did seem to center on my daughter and granddaughter, at least in our case, we concentrated on talking some sense into Henry. After a bit of persuasion, the janitor did seem to move on to longer hallways, in parentheses, greener pastures. While he no longer bothered my daughter and granddaughter, a few months later, they found their own greener pastures and decided to move out. There was just too much trauma and bad memories. So that one I found to be really freaking creepy. So that is the Old School Manor. Burned down school with a death and maybe a murder, and then apartments.
Yeah.
Perfect place for an apartment building.
Right. A like vengeful ghost and a scary little ghost girl.
Yeah. I mean, she just sounds like she's like trying to play and maybe doesn't know her own strength.
Right.
But
yeah, pushing people down.
Weird. Yeah, exactly.
Very weird. Good one. Yikes. Okay. I'll do my last one, which is a bit different, I guess. But it's another hospital. So it's the Changi, I think is how you say that. Hospital. And it was, and actually I'm just realizing I think it's Singapore.
Oh, yeah.
Is where it's located. Hang on. I gotta clear my throat.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
There we go. Okay. So Changi Hospital was first built by the British government in 1935 to complement other military installations in Changi, which was then a large British military base that was intended to defend the eastern end of the Johor Strait, which I don't know that geography.
Nope.
But it was a wartime.
And if you don't, I don't.
Build. Yeah. During the period of the Japanese occupation of Singapore, the compound that was called the Kitchener Barracks, so that was part of the hospital grounds, I guess, was part of the military hospital. It was mainly for service to wounded Japanese military personnel and some Allied prisoners of war. Let's see. It was handled, they say, so I assume under the control of the notorious Kempei Tai, which I've never heard before, but it's the Japanese military police. Which also played the role of secret police, I guess.
Not a good vibe. Secret police is never a good vibe.
No. And they were, I guess, notorious for being pretty horrible to their prisoners. They throw around the word torture chamber about this part of the hospital.
Yikes.
It says torture center, actually.
That makes it better.
Yeah, it's a center of torture.
Multiple chambers, so we'll call it a center.
A center.
Yeah.
It's more official that way. But they based that on a particular small room with high and narrow windows in which thick chains hanging on the walls and what was supposedly the remnants of an old torture device with bloodstains left on the old floor served as the infamous torture chamber in the hospital.
Gross.
Yeah. So eventually these facilities were deemed inadequate and they shifted to a different place following the end of World War II. But so it's been abandoned since then, but they've gotten a little bit creative with things that they have going on there. Let's see. They've decided to put it up for rent, essentially, for different things. But I think the most common thing that has gone on there, the people that rent it the most often, are filmmakers.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So they can use it as a scene or a, what's the word I'm looking for? A set.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a scary hospital movie or whatever. There was a mockumentary filmed there that's called Haunted Changi. So that was obviously fake because it was a mockumentary. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who think that this place is very, very haunted. And I wouldn't be surprised if they are correct.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Torture center seems like a breeding ground for a haunted place.
It's a safe guess. So, yeah. I lost my spot. Let's see. The buildings are said to be haunted by the souls of the victims of the Japanese occupation, homeless ghosts, and the spirits of those who died in the hospital. In 2017, a video of sightings of a nurse carrying a baby in the haunted hospital circulated around the internet, sparking debate on its authenticity and the spookiness of the former hospital. But I feel like we say this a lot, that either way, there's going to be really negative energy in there.
Yeah, 100%.
It's still going to have a bad vibe.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, it's still available if you want to rent it for your next scary movie shoot.
Hashtag sponsored. Just kidding.
Exactly.
Unpaid sponsorship with Changi Hospital.
Yes, exactly. Changi Hospital. And I did have one last thing that might be for another episode. Yeah, the Changi Aloha Chalet is near the hospital, and they say that is an infamously haunted place. So we should
is it like
check that
a
out
hotel?
I think so.
Ooh, okay.
So we'll have to give that a look.
I'll add it to our, you said Changi Aloha Chalet.
Yes.
We have a running list of haunted hotels.
Yeah.
And some of them
are so many.
Yeah. Some of them are, there are a lot.
Yeah. So I didn't look into that one at all. I doubt that anybody listening is like, oh yeah, I know Changi Aloha.
Changi Aloha.
That's not haunted.
I mean, maybe if you're Singaporean, but
yeah.
I don't know. Even then, maybe a stretch.
Right. If you are, let us know.
Let us know. Holler at your girls.
Yeah. That's the Changi Hospital.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little field trip to New York City.
Manhattan.
If you watch What We Do in the Shadows, you get it. And if you don't, watch it.
Did I send you, another tangent that Megan sent me?
No.
It's the scene where I'm blanking on his name, the one that talks so funny.
Oh, yeah. The only one I can remember is Nandor, but I know. I don't know why their names don't stick.
Right. And he's talking about burritos, and he calls them burritos.
Burritos.
That is so funny. Just the little things that he does are so good.
That whole show is just a masterpiece. A comedic masterpiece.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so New York City. And this is from literally today.
Oh, wow.
This was posted today. This is 14 West 10th Street. So this is in the Greenwich neighborhood of Manhattan. This building is also referred to as number 14. It was once a single family townhouse. And back in 1937, it was converted to apartments. An apartment building with 10 separate apartments. And it's a nice place to live if you don't mind the 22 ghosts that live there as well. Wow. Yeah. Great.
It's a lot of ghosts.
It's also known as the Death House or the House of Death. So buckle up. Little bit of background. It was built in the 1850s. It's a 4-story Greek revival home. It was home to a very upper class New York people, society, families. The most famous resident there was actually Mark Twain, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
At the time it was built and the decades to follow, it was a very favorable, popular neighborhood. And even though apartments in the brownstone home are still very wanted, there's a bit of a cloud hanging over it. In 1987, the townhouse became a murder scene, giving it the nickname the House of Death or the Death House. But even before that, there were actually claims of haunting. So there was already a lot of weird vibes going on there.
Yeah.
One of number 14's well-known residents is Mrs. James Borman Johnston, whose husband had been one of the founders of the Metropolitan Underground Railroad and the Broadway Underground Railroad. Another famous resident was actress Jan Bryant Bartell, who moved into the top floor apartment, which had previously been servants' quarters with her husband. Bartell had lived in 16 West 10th Street before and claimed she was harassed by a ghost in that apartment building as well. Moving to number 14 did not make things better. In fact, Bartell claimed she felt and saw the presence of a, quote, monstrous moving shadow. At first, she feared that the ghost from her former home had followed her, but she was actually not the only person to have ghostly experiences there, obviously, because this place became very well renowned for being haunted.
Yeah.
Of course, there was Mark Twain. as I said, author Mark Twain, or Samuel Clemens, which is his given name, lived at 14 West 10th Street. Even though he only lived in the building for a year, from 1900 to 1901, it became his favorite residence. He had heard about paranormal claims, but was a skeptic, so he kind of waved the ghost stories away. He even downplayed a very spooky encounter he himself had at number 14. One night, Twain saw a piece of kindling wood move by itself near the fireplace. He grabbed his pistol and shot it, thinking some rodent was taking off with it. He discovered a few drops of blood, but no intruder, not human nor animal, were ever found. He openly mocked the idea of the paranormal in his short story called A Ghost Story, in which a ghost haunted his own fake corpse. He probably would have laughed if someone had told him he himself would haunt his former home, but that is allegedly what he actually does.
Whoa, really?
Although he didn't die in the building, he's been said to haunt the place. He loved it in life, so it kind of makes sense that he would still be there in death. He's been seen on the stairs of the building, and a mother and a daughter who lived in the building in the 1930s claimed to have seen him sitting in front of the window on the first floor, which was a space that he often occupied, and he even spoke to them. He said, "My name is Clemens, and I has a problem here I gotta settle."
Okay.
And then disappeared like smoke. So maybe he has some unfinished business.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yes.
That's
so getting
crazy.
into, it's wild. That'd be so cool to see the ghost of Mark Twain.
Of Mark Twain. Yeah. Wow.
And I think I had read on another source, and I don't know if this is like corroborated, but apparently neither the mother nor the daughter knew that Mark Twain's born name was Samuel Clemens. So when they said that, people were like, "Oh shit, that's Mark Twain." Yeah. And they were like, "Wait, what do you mean?" So I don't know if that's true, but allegedly.
Okay.
To get into a bit of its darker history, there's the murder of Lisa Steinberg, who was 6 years old at the time of her death. Lisa Steinberg, born Elizabeth Launders, was the 6-year-old illegally adopted daughter of criminal defense attorney Joel Steinberg and his live-in partner, Hedda Nussbaum. They had an apartment at the number 14 West 10th. Lisa's single mother hired Steinberg to help her find her daughter a suitable home for adoption. Instead, Steinberg adopted her himself without taking the right legal steps, which is crazy because he was an attorney. The couple illegally adopted another child later. They just call him Baby Mitchell. On November 1st, 1987, a phone call was made to 911 claiming Lisa had stopped breathing. She was taken to a nearby medical center, but was declared brain dead and died a couple of days later. After her very questionable death, the apartment was investigated by the police. Here they discovered a baby, I think baby Mitchell, covered in filth, and Hedda Nussbaum also showed signs of abuse. So Joel Steinberg was taken into custody. He had hit Lisa on the head while high on crack, and after he hit her, stormed out of the house. Hedda made the emergency call, and she was not prosecuted, but Steinberg was sent to jail. He got out in 2004 and now lives a low-profile life in Harlem and has a job as a construction worker. So he's still out there, which is really creepy. And other than Mark Twain, there are 21 other ghosts at 14 West 10th Street. Investigators claim to have seen, including but not limited to, a lady in white, because you got to have a lady in white, the spirit of a young girl who people suspect to be Lisa, and a gray cat. There are more ghosts at the building, but not all of them are as outspoken as these three. I love that the cat is included.
Yes.
The building is a private residence, so please don't go and take a look around because people live there and pay to live there. But some say you'll feel or see the presence of ghosts even just walking by down the street.
Whoa.
So that is the death house. Yes. And then my last one is a Roosevelt Island haunting. So they don't say point blank that this is the Octagon, but the Octagon is a former insane asylum located on Roosevelt Island, and this Reddit story really seems to align with that. So I think they just didn't name the Octagon, but I suspect that this is it. So this is from Jaded Felicity, and it's on the Ghost Stories subreddit. So they say, when I was a sophomore in college, I lived in an apartment in New York City on Roosevelt Island, which is nestled between Manhattan and Queens. The island has a dark history, and at one point there were insane asylums and a smallpox hospital in this area. It's actually pretty fascinating if you want to Wikipedia it. But with all of that suffering, the island seems to still carry that burden. So our apartment was laid out in sort of an L shape. The living room and dining room faced part of the hallway, and there was a bathroom at the end of the hall that was small and led to the 2 bedrooms, one of which had a balcony off of it. I'm not going to lie, we had a killer view, and for a dorm, we felt like we were living pretty large. But not long after we moved in, my 3 roommates... Okay, and sorry, I need to pause here for a minute. I selected this specific story about the Roosevelt Island creepiness because, well, you'll see why. But it has some serious parallels to our experience, Amy.
Oh,
yours
really?
and mine. Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. So, okay, not long after we moved in, my 3 roommates and I began to experience some things. It started with the feeling like we were being watched all the time. I remember specifically, I was home alone and working on a mural, and then in parentheses they say art student, and I began to feel very uneasy, like someone was right behind me the whole time watching me. This went on for about an hour, and I just could not shake this feeling, but I did my best to just roll with it. I'll admit I was scared, and I was relieved when my roommates eventually got home. As the semester continued, my roommate and I had a huge project to do, and in order to accommodate all the space we needed to do it, we took turns working in the living room. I worked on my project first and then headed to bed as my roommate worked on hers. I was laying in my bed reading with my back to the door when I saw a shadow come up on my book and felt like someone had walked up behind me. Thinking it was my roommate, I turned to see what she wanted, and she wasn't there. I shrugged it off and kept reading. The shadow once again crept up on my book. I moved my blankets, my head. The shadow didn't move. At this point, I was scared, but I felt ridiculous if I even mentioned it, so I just pulled the covers over my head and went to sleep. Fast forward to Halloween. We had a party and a bunch of friends were over, and as the night wore on, we started talking about ghosts and spooky stuff. Lo and behold, it comes up about how everyone thinks our place is a little spooky. My roommate then starts to tell a story about how one night we both had a project due and we took turns, ... I'm like, where is she going with this, ... She says she was working on her project and she saw someone out of the corner of her eye walking in the hallway. So she gets up thinking it's me and then goes into my room and sees that I'm asleep. She goes back to do her project when she feels someone come up behind her. All the hairs on the back of her neck stand up, and once again, no one is there. Now, at this point, I had never mentioned to her what had happened to me that same exact night. I told her my story, and we were both in shock. Isn't that weird? It's
Yes.
just like our situation, seeing someone in the doorway and not saying anything to each other for a long time about it. Or walking by. Oh, that was so freaking creepy when that used to happen. God.
Yeah, very.
Okay, so just to wrap it up here. So the more we talk, a few people start mentioning feeling like they were going to get pushed off the balcony every time they went out there. And then it comes out that 2 of our friends had the exact same dream when they slept over one night. They were paralyzed in the dream and began floating and then began to uncontrollably spin. At this point, I'm convinced something weird is happening in the apartment. Sometime later, I began to start seeing a shadow figure often out of the corner of my eye in the hallway. It was dark with no features, and I only ever saw it in my peripheral vision as it quickly darted when I would look full on. I convinced myself it was just my eyes until my friend was over. We were sitting at the table talking when I got distracted for a second because I saw it. So I took a pause in the conversation, and when I looked at my friend, she said, "I saw it." And I said, "Saw what?" And she said, "That black thing in the hallway." I had never told her I had seen it before, and I felt totally vindicated.
Yeah.
The pinnacle of my experiences, this literally feels like the same kind of thing as like one of us would sit down and write, because this next part, she's like, the pinnacle of my experience happened one day on winter break. I'm like, oh my God, it was right before winter break when that creepy thing happened. Okay, the pinnacle of my experiences happened when it was winter break. My roommates had left to go home, and I was the last one there. Not wanting to be alone, I called a friend to stay. We were talking about going out, so I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth. The door was open because we were still talking. When there was a pause in our conversation, I heard a voice plain as day whisper my name loudly and directly into my ear.
Oh,
At this point, I visibly freaked out. I confirmed with my friend that she had said nothing, and we decided to leave the apartment for a while. During the winter break, I had contacted a few paranormal teams who wanted to check it out after I had relayed my story. When we got back from break, I told my roommates, and they were not at all interested and acted like I was nuts, although we had all had experiences. I regret to this day not just letting them come over break. So I went to a church, I got holy water, sprinkled it all over my apartment, and said aloud, "This is my apartment, and you're scaring me. That's not okay, and you need to go." After that, I didn't feel much of a presence, but maybe I just believed what I did worked and learned to ignore it. I'll never know because I moved out at the end of the school year.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the pinnacle of our story for you?
For me, it was, I think ours are probably different because mine was home alone when I was doing that paper. And I was like, I was like, I'm facing my computer at my desk. The window was to my left and the door was like kitty corner on the other side of the room. And I saw the door closing slowly. And when I turned, it was like slowly closing and then slammed. And those doors were so heavy and there was no AC on. All the windows and doors were closed. I checked. I was so scared and I thought someone was in the apartment, and so I was like looking and I was there alone, so I was like looking around my room for something because I like locked the door, looking around my room for something. And then when I went out, I was like, who's out there, like trying to be threatening. I remember we would never have cell phone service in there. You'd have to like stand by the window. And so I was so scared, I like called my boyfriend at the time, Mitch, like, because he lived in our building, to like come down, and he wasn't answering his phone. So I was so terrified. So finally I like looked through all of our rooms. I'm like, okay, there's no one in here. It must have just been the wind, but there was nothing. And you know how sometimes like even with our front door closed, the wind would like whistle if it was windy, because sometimes those front doors to the building were open. Nothing. There's nothing. There was not a breeze. And when I went outside, it wasn't breezy. I was like, what the fuck was that? It was so scary. And it's not like it was just that in a vacuum. It was always creepy shit in the doorway or the hallway.
Yeah.
And I came, go ahead.
Behind your door.
Ew, yours. I know. That really scared me.
Yeah.
I feel like, what was your peak experience? Was it you and Lauren? Your phone or your computer?
My phone and computer. But also when we came back from break and the like lines on the walls and behind your locked door.
Yeah.
That really creeped me out. Because your door was locked.
Like, I know.
Who was back there drawing circles on the wall? I don't know.
It scared the shit out of me. I remember I kept trying to like scrub it off with those like eraser those wall eraser things. Oh my God, it was so creepy.
Yeah.
I came across something while I was doing research for this on like Quora or somewhere random, where it was like, why do ghosts love doors? And people were like, they open and close doors, like slam them to get our attention, but they're able to manipulate them more because they're portals. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Right. And like the hallway is also kind of a portal. It's like a runway to different spaces in our house. Yeah. I mean, that moment was the scariest, but I think what made my stomach drop most was when you and I finally said
something
like, oh, I've been seeing you. Like seeing each other, that is what scared the shit out of me, because I was like, that feels demonic, that it's pretending to be each other.
Yeah.
I did not like that at all.
No.
That was really scary, that apartment.
That was really haunted. Like,
in hindsight.
Yeah.
And the shower curtain scraping, that super heavy PVC shower curtain. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that part.
It was so hard to open and close, and we would hear it squeaking. Actually, I don't know if did you hear it, or was it just me and Kayla? because we shared that bathroom. Remember, and you walked down the hall to the one with Lauren? But there were times when I was like, are you in the bathroom? Like, what's going on? She's like, no, I can hear it moving. And we would be like, okay, we're going to open it fully. And it was so heavy, and the rings were metal on a metal rod. So it was not easy to open and close. Like even like a gust of wind wouldn't do that. You had to like yank. Yeah. And we would go in and it would be moved. It would be like halfway open. It was so fucking scary.
Yeah. There was just like that's the most undoubtedly haunted place I've been. But I also weirdly, it would be like very, very scary in the moment. Yeah. But looking back, I'm like,
oh, I loved that place.
Afraid for my life or anything. No. It was just so spooky.
I was really scared. I never felt like, oh, someone's going to hurt me. I just felt really scared of what I was going to see. Yeah. I felt like really scared that I was going to see something. Yeah. And didn't I have, I mean, I was not like health-wise great at that time, but I think I had a bit of a resurgence in night terrors, didn't I? At that time?
I'm trying to remember. You may have.
Because I remember Mitch saying like you woke up screaming and he would have to wake me up. So I must have, because I don't know why else I'd be screaming.
Right, screaming. Yeah.
Just for funsies.
Just because you could.
Just because.
Yeah.
Just girly things.
Yeah.
Screaming in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Weird.
Anyway, that was our haunted ass apartment, but I do have such fond memories of that place though, because it was like not just dorm living, but we were in an apartment. I mean, it felt really like grown up and very like college.
Yeah.
And it was so convenient.
So nice.
Yeah. Like biking to class, going like walking to parties and stuff. I mean, it was like such like an idyllic college experience.
And up the canyon too. Like it's
all the hiking.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That was that was really fun.
I'd love to go and see who's living in
the Cookie Monster.
112.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say in the Cookie Monster too, but
that too.
Wasna. God. Yeah. Any Cal Poly students living in Wasna 112, hit us up.
Yeah. Let us know.
Let us know. There's probably like a Cal Poly Slow like subreddit we could ask.
Yeah. Probably. That's true.
We should try that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, guys. Well, this was a long one, but I really liked this. Also, sorry for all the tangents.
Yeah, that was a little off topic today, but
but yeah, we love you guys. Thanks for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. You can follow us at Girls Gone Spooky on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can also watch all the episodes on YouTube. If you have your own scary stories, you can DM them to us. You can email us at girlsgonespooky@gmail.com. We'll be back next week. And until then, stay spooky.
Bye.
Bye.